All right. Episode 183, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna keep going. By the way, new surrounding. We are in the gym, which I will show at the as a new entrance for the podcast. I'll show the gym. It's a cool little video.
We're proud of it. It's really cool. I have my own
Taking
station.
shape.
Julian has his own station, so we don't have to speak or interact with each other.
One wishes. It's not working. Oh, but anyway, yeah. So crazy CrossFitter right side, strongman left side. Anyway, I mean crazy CrossFitter. It's like a pleonasm. I mean, it means the same thing twice.
Yeah.
We say pleonasm in French. I don't know what the name is in English.
No, either.
Yeah, anyway, say the same thing twice.
I get what you're saying.
183. We're going from last week. So, and then it's awesome because we have the dogs as the background because we're in the gym. So we will try the sound cancelling. If it doesn't work, you will have the dog in the background for the whole podcast. That's not annoying at all. Doesn't annoy me at all. The dog is still alive against my best efforts. But
I will not scream.
can't buy guns in Brazil. It's a problem. Anyway, so no, I'm not saying I would do anything against that poor creature who just needs to stop barking at some point.
It's very aggressive.
Bad things happen to bad
You're
people.
calling me crazy.
Bad things happen to bad
No,
people.
but
Is all I'm gonna say.
let's talk about you
Anyway.
calling me crazy and you want to shoot a
I
gun.
never call you crazy. I don't want to shoot.
You
a gun.
literally called me crazy 5 seconds ago.
No, I did not say it's a crazy CrossFitter, which is not the same.
Which you
thing.
referred to me.
No, I refer to CrossFitters, which people understand. So last week we were talking about the fact that we were going to not change the direction, but be a little bit more concrete for the time coming. And that's something I've been working on for a while now. So to explain how I'm going at it, this is the issue so I've talked about in our last few podcasts, but this is the issue that I saw. A collapse of the arch, exploration versus exploitation. And in the last podcast, we talked about really what is plaguing the world, but especially the Western world, which is anxiety, that free-flowing anxiety that comes mostly from, I think, a loss of meaning in life, because as you get close to your 30s or past, you start to discover that they fed you a lie. Like, for example, let's start with the school system. The school system was never designed to teach you anything. The school system was designed to take kids away from farms and put them into a setup that will lead them to success in the big city. So literally teaching them to work at the factory. Rich kids did not go to school. Like when the school started to come around during the Industrial Revolution, rich kids did not go to school. They had private tutors. It's always been the way we've been teaching kids, is through family stuff or private tutors, always. Here comes Industrial Revolution. We need to put parents, at least, we need to put parents away from the farm in the cities. So for people to work in factories, including women, mostly men at the time, but including women, we need the kids to not be in the house. And we need to teach them not to be farmers, but to be factory workers. So we put them in schools. This is the foundation of school. The problem is the world has changed since 1860, but school hasn't. So they're feeding you that idea of education, stuff like that, which is only grossly outdated and is not preparing you for the future. The point of school now is not education, is to get a job. That's it. So it's the same mentality. And they're basically selling you a lie, essentially, from the beginning. And then you move on in your 20s where you're still being influenced by Hollywood movies and stuff like that. And as you start to get past your mid-20s into your 30s, you start to realize how much of a bullshit all that stuff is. And now you're in a life that is already built, that is moving forward, where you're working all day to pay the bills without really having a path forward. Back to the bullshit jobs, 50% of white collar thinking their job make no difference in the world whatsoever. That's in their 30s and 40s and everything. So I think the biggest issue we see is that what the guy in the podcast talked about, free-flowing anxiety. And as we saw with the reaction to the pandemic, not so much the virus itself, but the reaction of people to the virus, this is something we should take very seriously. This is, like that podcast we talked about, this is how mass hypnosis happened. We've seen that with religion a lot. We've seen that with World War I, World War II, where we saw systems ideology taking over people. which is extremely dangerous. And we saw the same thing with the reaction to the pandemic, where now there's a war against the unvaccinated that is reminiscent of a certain way of talking that I found very worrisome. Let me put it this way. And so how are we going to deal with that anxiety? It matters a lot, right? And so this is what I think.
And you think the coaches can make a big difference?
I believe that the coaches are the people that can make the biggest difference in this world toward anxiety and depression. It's not doctors who are just going to shove pills on you because honestly they're bought off by the pharmaceutical industry. It's not psychotherapy because talking about something is not enough. You need to be able to take action. It's the basis of prediction versus observation. You can't just change a prediction. Like that's psychotherapy, like looking at what happened in a different way by expressing it. It helps, but it's not enough. That's just a prediction system. You need the observation system to be handled a certain way. You need the world to become something that fits the prediction. And you can't change 600 million years of evolution. You need an environment that creates a certain amount of stress. Otherwise, you're spinning way out of control, right?
You lose meaning, basically, right?
You lose meaning because you can't anchor yourself in reality.
Yeah.
That world we live in, where we're not hungry, where we are not cold or hot, or everything is on the phone. The interaction with people is on the phone. So an avatar that has no weaknesses, no vulnerability, that is your perfect image of yourself, that isn't, because there's nothing human in that persona that you create for social media. This is just your best stuff without any of the interesting little idiosyncrasies that we all have, that what makes us human, really.
Yes.
That world that we're creating and portraying for world is not real. That has no contact with reality. When you live in a country like Brazil, the first thing you see is you see poverty, you see a tropical storm. This is why I like countries like this. I love countries that have extreme weather because they remind you that nature does not give a shit.
Yeah.
And that all that stuff, like we can be inside and everything, that's great. But if nature really decides to get pissed, like you have to deal with that. You have to deal with the reality of the world.
Well, for me, when we first got here, like I grew up in Holland, and everything's so soft. Like it's just very well organized, and as soon as you get here and we go into the favela one time, you go like, okay,
I could die then, right?
Yeah,
so,
but not even that. But I mean, just like you see people, like 12 people live in a small house, and there's no one that takes care of them if there's no money in the house.
No, imagine if there's a fire.
Yeah.
Like you go in a favela, and then imagine there's a fire on the first floor.
Yeah.
Everybody dies in the building.
And but you also see a different reality. And
so you went to a party, and then to go to the party, you were on the back.
Yeah.
Tell that story so people understand what reality is, like what real life is. So you go to a party.
So I'm with a friend, and I don't speak Portuguese. I was here 2 months, so I don't speak any Portuguese. I speak a little bit now, but then I don't speak anything. So I go with a friend, and the favela is on a mountain, right?
Yeah,
so
because this is Rio, so it's up and down everywhere.
So you go into the favela, and the mountain is like this, like literally like this. So you have to take a motor scooter, motor taxi.
The party, so you have to understand that the party is probably 1 kilometer inside the favela.
Inside the favela,
most of the cars don't go up the favela.
Yeah.
The taxis don't drive you there. So what you do is they drop you off.
Uber doesn't go there.
Uber doesn't go up because it's a favela. Yeah. So Uber drops you off at the beginning of the mountain, and then you take a moto taxi up. A moto taxi means you sit in the back
of a
motorcycle
without helmet
with the guy.
Yeah. So there's
helmets. What do you mean?
No, there's no helmets.
There's no helmets in Rio anyway.
So anyway, we're there with a group of friends, and everyone goes on a different motor. And, I stand out a little bit in Brazil, let's say it like that. Like, no one looks like me, so I feel...
Back of the motorcycle?
I'm on the back of the motorcycle. And we're going up, and I lose all the other girls that I'm with.
Because they drive... By the way, this is Rio, they drive insane.
Nuts. And I'm looking and I'm in the favela, and I'm seeing, dogs on the street, people, all over the place, small houses, and it's like a different, it feels like I've never seen anything like this. And I'm sitting there, and I'm alone with the taxi driver, and he just stops.
Motorcycle driver, he's not a taxi driver, because it's not nearly that organized or that safe.
And he stops out of the sudden, and I'm like, he starts talking to me, I don't understand anything. And everyone starts staring at me, and I'm like, I might die
Yeah.
today.
The
I
guy
might
goes
die
talk to
today.
a bar, talk to his friend.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, and I'm like,
This
that
is the
wasn't.
producer of
I'm
your
gonna
show right
go.
there.
And I'm
Good
so
job,
sorry.
honey.
I'm so sorry.
job.
That was my
Sorry, I'm
alarm.
so sorry.
Nice job. So you didn't put it on.
Sorry.
There's
That
a
was a-
producer of your show right there, and that's going on the podcast.
I'm so sorry. That was my alarm. Anyway, everyone is looking at me, and I'm like, oh my god! Like the culture shock, plus everyone staring at me, plus the fact that I don't see anything I know is just killing me. Anyway, he goes a different route, and all of a sudden I'm at the party, and I'm
Wait,
so
but
happy.
before that, when he leaves the bar to go her, he goes to her and he goes like, "So where are we going?"
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm like,
I'm gonna die. That's it. I'm gonna a favela in Rio, and the guy, I'm gonna die.
yeah.
Anyway, so welcome to the world. That's what
It
happened
was-
at that moment.
Yeah, that's very
There
true.
is a such.
The parties got interrupted, by the way, because there was like someone had a
don't worry.
fight.
Someone
with
had a fight with a local
dealer,
with a drug dealer that
and
controls the
I had to
favela.
run out with my
Don't do that.
friends.
Yeah.
I hope my mom doesn't see this.
As a rule, don't pick a fight with a drug dealer that runs the favela. You will die.
So
Don't
me
do
and my
that.
friends had to go out.
They took off because the guy was on drugs, picking a fight with a drug dealer.
So
Don't do that. I wasn't
mix
there.
Poverty with
Yeah.
drugs
But that's-
doesn't go together.
No, but that's because that guy is crazy.
Chaos.
Like, that was
and
just
they
a bad
love
friend. Yeah.
they love telenovelas. Like everything is dramatic. So everything becomes
Latin culture. But
an adventure. Let's
by the
call
way,
it like
all
that.
parties are not like that. Like that, the bar where
No.
there's a bar, a very famous bar in that favela that is actually very hipster, very famous, and a great bar to go to. She just happened to go to the one on the side that wasn't that. We thought where she was going there, but she ended up.
Anyway, doesn't matter.
Just to
Back
say,
the point.
like, there is a world out there that is not nearly as soft as the picture we are portraying in the Western world, which I find very dangerous. I remember that conversation with one of the leftists who was saying, like, women have the right to be safe. And I'm like, the right to be safe? You're fucking insane. Do we want everybody to be safe? Of course. Do I want women to be safe? Obviously. Do I want women to avoid being attacked? Always. It is not a right. It is a privilege that people have to die to obtain. You are not safe in this world unless people before you have bled and died to build a structure that allows you that safety. But safety is not a right. Go on Instagram and go on Nature is Metal. Live outside of the bubble you call a life. And you realize nothing is safe. In order for you to have a sense of safety, your sense of safety is built on the blood of people who build the system for you. Do not think for a second you have the right to be safe. That is ridiculous. By the way, can you imagine the world we would have to build for you to have the right to be safe? Not the privilege, not the chance to be safe, the right to be safe. It's not the same. You have to, if you start to have the right to, you need to build an entire society in order to grant that to everybody. Police state, you're gonna have to imprison everybody. Same people that said that the prison system is wrong. Like he's imprisoning too many people. You want to have the right to be safe. Then, and he defines safe, by the way, because it starts with rape and he starts with murder. But before you know it, safe means he looked at me wrong. There's no limit to those things. That's the problem when you say the right to, then suddenly you have to define things on a societal level. And now you say safe, define safe. Because now you go safe, he's like, he looked at me incorrectly, I feel offended, I feel threatened, he has to go to jail. Can you imagine the society you're creating? They've been doing this in science fiction movies. I've seen the movie, it doesn't end well. Like, anyway, so, but that's the problem when you start with a prediction that is out of whack with observation. Is the thing spins out of control, right? Anyway, to go back to the point, is like, I believe gyms, coaches, you guys, are the chosen people because we are the only one who can create an observation that matches the prediction of where the world is at. Like we have gotten soft. And if you look, the solution to stress right now, to mental stress, is softer. It's namaste, the better way. Every time you stress from work, like, what are you stressed about at work? You're stressed about losing your lifestyle, getting fired, losing money and stuff like that, which is a real threat. But it's not that Brenda at work is not going to stab you in the back, right? Joe over there does not look.
It's not gonna kidnap you.
He's not going to feast on your entrails in order to, because he turned into a zombie. That shit is not going to happen. It's a social threat that is constantly there because it's a very complex back and forth. And I made many podcasts about the sense of threat, which is why it feels like an attack on your identity, because that's what your identity is. It's the development of your sense of threat. So that constant back and forth between people that are your competitors, work, unfortunately, relationship now, everybody is a competitor. So that creates a constant prediction toward where am I? That is a threat to your sense of self, right? But this is not backed by observation because your body has no clue what your mind is telling it. Because it's like, you're telling me there's a threat, but I have no physical contact toward that threat, not hot, nor cold, not hungry, not anything. I live in a bubble, in a cocoon, where nothing of true threat gets in. Your prediction versus observation is completely out of whack. So that is a definition of anxiety. And as we've seen, that anxiety unchecked leads a society to do very, very dangerous things. So I believe that gyms and coaches are the chosen people to a problem that needs to be tackled. So 2022, I mean, I've been going at anxiety for a long time, and there are ways to do this. But where I think I did not do a good enough job, and then I'm going to focus on 2022, is how to deal with anxiety, but in a concrete way. So the problem of 2020 and 2021 from a Strongfit perspective was the collapse of the arch, exploration versus exploitation, right? And so this is what I want to fix in 2022. I want to give all of you, gyms, coaches, athletes, everybody with anxiety, a better structure. Because coming from seeing a lot of CrossFitters that were so structured, so body as an object, pushing data, macros, times, all that stuff, pushing the body as an object so much that they gave themselves massive anxiety because prediction observation cannot match in body as an object alone, a collapse of another arch. I started to go, we need more exploration.
So you went the other way.
Right, which was true because I was trying to balance the arch collapsing toward exploitation. So I was trying to bring it more toward exploration to find a good medium. But as I progressed in the last 6-7 years and people started to follow what we were saying, I've seen a shift toward too much exploration. I think a lot of time CrossFit lost some of its appeal, and then Strongfit started winning in a way too much, bringing people too much toward exploration. And I ended up talking to a lot of people that stopped training hard enough in order to explore. But also one of the main reasons they stopped training hard is because they lost the structure that they had prior, that exploitation gives you. So exploration allows you to find the muscle, find the connection, find the pump, find all that. Exploitation allows you to have structure. So the question becomes, if you want to deal with anxiety and find the top of the arch, how do you structure all this? You have exploitation already has a structure, and exploration that by definition will be near impossible to structure. And that's what I want to do. That's what I've been working really hard on, and that's what basically we're managing to find, is that system of exploration versus exploitation, that we still need to have a structure within the exploration. So how do we do that? So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say we take 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. Those time lapse don't matter. 1 week can be 2 weeks, 1 month can be 3 months, depending on your mesocycles. But you get the idea. 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. 1 month, you're going to have a goal, something you're going to get toward. Maybe your shoulder not rising to your ear only on the left side, or shoulder pain, or things like that. So we're going to do an assessment and see that we need more teres major, more more things like this, right? That is the goal of that cycle, a month, 2 months, whatever. Then you have your programming for the week. The programming for the week would be, what movement do I need in order to achieve the goal? Like this week, I need to see some hinging. I need to see some lat engagement. I need to see some pressing. I need to see, right? And then that's how I'm going to start to develop a structure, is toward the movement that needs to happen. And then on the day, That's where the exploration comes in. Because on the day, depending on the state of the person, I'm going to have to modify things. I want to hinge for that person, but they're either tired or not focused. So am I going to use a good morning? Am I going to use a stiff leg deadlift or a deadlift?
Yeah.
If the person is super stressed and cannot be focusing on the form too much, then I might not give them a good morning. That really requires paying attention. Otherwise, your back is. But it might be the same thing a little bit toward the deadlift. So maybe I'll do stiff leg, which is lower on the waist than the deadlift of the floor. If they're very angry, just want to go full neural output, then I might do deadlift of the floor. But so I'm going to have to change, depending on the state of the person, how I deal with the day. But at the same time, I'm going to, whether they do a good morning, a stiff leg, or a deadlift, they're still doing a hinge movement. So I'm still within my plan, within the movement that I want to do for the week. So it still work, right? But at the same time, there has to be a structure within all this, because the biggest thing that I saw was people going into exploration, and then every day they go, well, I'm going to find the muscle, I'm going to find a connection. But then they just would not go. It's not the same mindset as going hard at a yoke carry, or the yoke carry, the farmers, when it's really heavy, almost doesn't require you to disconnect, but to go past find the muscle. When it gets really heavy, you don't want to feel the weight on your back. You actually want to feel like it's light and keep moving, engaging the right muscles, but not feeling the weight. So it's not the same mindset at all.
Like you can't do a hard sprint session and only think about finding your hamstrings, because
that's not going to work out.
I tried that and it just freaks you out, because every time you feel them too much, you go like, oh, but this, oh, but that, oh, but this.
Right, and now you're running slow.
Yeah, that too.
Right, exactly. So that's going to be the main issue, is if you try to...
it's just not the same move.
If you go exploration, like for example, sprint is a great thing. Like today, we're going to do runs of 40 meters full speed. Right, if you try to explore, to do an exploration phase on a 40-meter full speed, one is winning. It's either you're running fast or you're finding your hammies, but you're not going to do both. That is not the time to explore, but I still need you to run the 40-meter once in a while, fast and stuff like that. So then after that, depending on if you're hurt or not, we're going to talk about how much exploration versus exploitation. But you still need to run fast, and you cannot do that in an exploration mode. That's the issue. So if
you're going to do a technical training session or more of...
Then you want to find your hammies. But if I give you a sandbag and say, go find your hammies, that's one thing. Like I'm giving you a 100-pound sandbag and say, go find your hammies, that's one exercise. But once in a while, I need to pick up the 200 or the 300-pound sandbag and do 20 meters, dying on every step. But you're going to have to gut, with a proper technique still, but you're going to have to gut those 20 meters with a very heavy sandbag, and it's going to hurt everywhere because that's the structural work. But that's a mindset where you need to fuck shit up. Or like if I make you do a burn the question, where I'm asking you to go 40 meters on a sled and giving me everything that you have, then whether you're feeling your hammies or not is not the problem. Like I'm going to have the moments where I want you to explore, but we need to have the moments where you need to go really hard. Both are necessary. And this is where I've been seeing that for a while. I just didn't know how to approach it. I didn't have the background that I needed in order to get to it. But now I understand fundamentally what the issue is. And this is what I saw with too much exploration, is I saw people starting to find the correct engagement at first, find the hammies, find the glutes. But before you know it, I've seen a lot of crashes. I've seen so much people crashing from that.
Where is that crash coming from?
Well, if you look, when you start to explore, it's a very specific mindset, and it's looking within yourself and the past. And looking within yourself, we're talking more parasympathetic. That's a longer conversation. But let me make long story short. Looking within yourself, looking within the past, leads straight to depression. Looking in the past is where if you're depressed, look at where you are. You always look within the past. What happened to you, what happened in your childhood, what happened in all this. This is why you see so many people crashing from psychotherapy when they go to therapists to talk about trauma or sexual abuse or stuff like that, because they keep talking about it, they keep bringing you back. When you keep bringing back like that, you look in the past, it's like you can only move forward if you're slightly ahead. of the present. You have to lean toward that side. If you keep looking on the other side toward the past, this is where depression lives. At some point, you have to fight for the present and your future. If you are too much in the future, that's where you see anxiety. So those are people that far too much into the future, always, body as an object, like I want a PR next year, programming for the next 16 weeks. And then we give them exploration, which bring them back from being too far in the future, closer to the present.
Yeah.
So they feel a drop in their anxiety. And so they go, well, that's awesome. I'm not as anxious anymore. So this works, which is true. But then from there, they start to back off completely of body as an object and start to fall into body as a subject too much. And that anxiety is gone, but leads into a crash. And so that massive overflowing anxiety that is still there from, that loss of meaning gets even more lost because there's even less meaning because you don't even have the structure of training to guide you forward. And that leads you straight into depression. And then you start to amplify that by going through the hard workout that allow you to connect through emotional mapping to certain things that lead you to even deeper hole. And before you know it, you're in trouble. And so, God, I hope every time we start a podcast, there's a guy in the back that needs to use his saw. Hopefully I can mask most of it on the podcast, I hope. Anyway, so that led to, I'm working one-on-one with a number of people now that I have gone through, and then I take my share of the blame on that have gone from, pushing the machine too hard competitors to so much into exploration that they can't even train anymore. And so the key is going to be to have some exploration, but some exploitation. So that means that we need to keep a structure within the training. So there need to be a part that is toward exploration and a part that is toward exploitation. That comes down to programming. So we need to keep the structure of training, the structure of programming. We just have to program some of the exploration, some of the exploitation. And that's what I've been working on so much. And I feel I have a good approach to it now. Like I figure out how to do it. Mostly I've been testing on myself and now I'm testing with my clients. And then I feel I have a good approach to it now.
And that approach is throughout programming, or how are you going to approach that into 2022?
If you look what Strongfit does,
it's going to be seen in the seminars too?
Yeah, in the seminars too, because if you look what Strongfit does is assessment, programming, coaching.
Yeah.
So in years prior, what you've seen really Strongfit focusing on assessment and coaching.
Yeah.
What we have lacked is programming, because again, coming from CrossFit, programming was already there. But that programming is lacking. So what we need to have is a science of assessment, a science of programming, a science of coaching. Yeah. I say science, but it's not that. Anyway, like the principles of all three. And so, at the seminars, I will still teach tension over position, internal torque, external torque, the nervous system, the lactate. But I really want 2022 on to be, I'm going to focus on assessment, programming, coaching. Why? Because that's what you're going to need at your gym to deal with a massive anxiety issue that we're going to have to deal with as the pandemic starts to go away. Yeah. Like they're going to, now that once the enemy, which is the unvaccinated, go away, and the vaccines allow people not to die, but we're going to realize the virus is staying exactly where it's at and we're going to have to deal with it. Then what? You're going to have to go back to your job that you find is useless, which is, more than half the people don't even want to go back to the office. They were clear at home. There's going to be a change in the way we work. But in the meantime, the anxiety is going to come back exactly the way it was before. That's going to hit people very hard. We need to be able to deal with it. And we need to deal with it in a way that is so effective that we don't have to go through that insanity of the last 2 years anymore. Hopefully, anyway, right? But so to do that, if we just go exploration, we're going to crash so many people.
But it's also an opportunity to give your clients a whole different experience from training, from an experience in the gym.
More than just training. So instead of having a cookie cutter, like just improving your Murph time, we can do that based on the person. So we can improve the Murph time and their anxiety or stuff like that at the same time.
How valuable is that?
And I think that's the most valuable thing. It's like, but the mistake we made was like, well, we're going to help them deal with anxiety. Yes, but you still have to improve their Murph time. Because if you train in the gym and you don't see results, you will quit.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with exploration, is you don't get to measure it. Exploration, you can say whatever you want. There's no right or wrong, because I can prove you're right or I can prove, it's like, did you feel your glutes? Good. Then what? Well, feel them more. Like, there's no progression, there's no measuring, there's no right or wrong. It's because it's, by definition, exploration.
Maybe it's fun to tell what Yaya asked you yesterday.
Oh yeah, right. So, and speaking of too much exploration, so I finished my cycle of strongman carries, neural output, and I end up with some decent weights. So time to change the cycle, and for a week I back off a bit. We went out one night, so didn't sleep enough, so I'm crashed for 2 days. So I'm like, all right, so backing off. And for a week I do mostly bodybuilding stuff, just exploration, find the muscle, find the movement, find the pump, stuff like that. I crashed completely. Within 1 week, completely crashed. Not doing the Q-1 either, because at that moment I was like, I don't need it, stuff like that. Within 2 weeks, I start to get fat again. My waist is getting thicker and all that stuff. I'm like, shit. So at some point, I'm like, all right, stop that. Like, because I could feel I was crashing. I was like, I need to change that. So it took me a week to change it, but back on the Ardine with the Q-1, back to my carries and everything. And so from within a week, I lost my waist dramatically. And then yesterday morning, I'm walking without a shirt because it's so hot right now at home. And right away, my daughter is like, hey, you got a lot leaner. What are you doing? I was like, well, I'm doing the Ardine 10 minutes a day. Not the only thing I'm doing. But, and then she was like, oh, I'm going to try that because it's so hard to lose fat around the low abs and the waist. I was like, yeah, I know it's really, really hard. He was like, yeah, but you did. And then suddenly we started to have a conversation about training I can never have with her.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't give a shit about conceptual and how you feel and anxiety. She wants to look better.
Yeah, and
that's it.
Like, I love my stepdaughter, but she is stubborn young lady who doesn't like to listen to her father when it comes to training.
When it comes to anything.
When it comes
she's
to anything.
asking me to ask her to help her with math at school because she's lost. Otherwise, she's like, you don't know anything. I'm a dad. That's how it works. But yeah.
But so to see that when she saw the change in you, she goes like, what are you doing? Exactly.
Like, people need to see that the stuff works. So they're going to explore, feel better on their anxiety, but they can't lose that sense of meaning, of structure that they get from the training. Otherwise, they'll crash. Because, like, you go to the gym and even if you're doing better, how do you know without measuring? At some point, like, some measurement is necessary. Too much, and then you start to collapse the arch again. But there is a balance there where you need to train hard too. It's great to find your glutes and your hammies and all that stuff. And again, it is necessary. But what is necessary is also, burn the question done correctly, is also strength work. Yeah. Carries, getting stronger, making progress, being a badass. Going to the gym, owning the weight. Owning people next to you. Like, because that matters as well. Like, all that stuff of like, I'm better than last year. Too many times I've heard like, well, I find my lats really well, I find my pecs. I'm like, all right, but you came to see me to fix your shoulder because your shoulder hurts when you press. How is your shoulder now? Well, I don't know because I don't press. Then that's a failure. The point was not to make you find your pec and your lats and you not pressing. The point was you pressing without pain. That was the point. So that's what we need to go back to. Yeah. Also, not just, but also, is like, I want you to do CrossFit as hard as you want to do it. I just want you to do it without breaking, without giving yourself anxiety, without bowling as an object being too far. So to do that, that means that there has to be a structure exploration and a structure exploitation. And they're different structures because they live on opposite side of the arch, but it is feasible.
Yeah. And
that's what we need.
The good thing is that they go really well hand in hand. You just have to find the right balance.
Exactly.
Like, if you can't do a pull-up, you have to start with finding your lats and not feeling pain in the traps and all of those things.
But you still need to do a pull-up.
But you still need to do the pull-ups, and you need a shit ton of them.
Right. And yeah, and if you can't do it now, if you can't do it now, 3 months from now, you need to do a pull-up. 6 months from now, you need to do 10. Then we can start teaching you keeping. Then we can start chest to bar. And then one day I want you to get to a muscle up, or at least having you might never get to a muscle up in your life, but it doesn't matter. I want you to have the goal to go there so that we keep that structure and that moving forward. If you keep looking in the past, which is really that exploration mode, because you're always looking like, am I finding my triceps? You try to be in the present, but really what you have is you go slightly behind the present always. Did I find my muscle? Like, you always think like, did I do that correctly last set? Did I do this? Like, you're starting to you're starting to back off.
Yeah.
I mean, and that leads to crash. That leads to depression, for a reason that I've explained in other podcasts. Whereas anxiety is looking in the future. Like you have to be careful with that. And then it led to a bunch of guys that I know also to with those sandbag workouts, they were going to find themselves, and what they found was something they didn't like somewhere in their life, and tried to get in touch back with that. But make sure it's recording, please.
Sorry.
But that what he did at the end was crushing them badly, badly. Like we're talking depression at that moment, because they lost the structure, they lost the meaning of training. Like, I won't lie, like lifting heavy, the heavy carries give me a sense of meaning.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When I'm under it and I carry the yoke and it's heavy and I'm making progress and I know there's not that many people that can do what I do, it gives me a sense of meaning in life.
Yeah, like
It does.
It's the same thing. That's mostly why I did track. It was because it gave me at that moment the meaning that I needed. And
I've been training at a national level for 40 years.
yeah, that's crazy though.
That's crazy. If I don't do that, I lose part of my identity. Not all of it, because I do other things, but it is part of it. And for a lot of people, it is a necessary part of it, especially when they can't find it in the other parts of their lives.
Yeah.
So this is what I want to focus on 2022, is that the importance of programming in order to keep the arch exploitation going.
Yeah.
There's a fundamental lack of that I did not address in the last few years. And so I want to also talk about it in the seminar, because the seminar really was a lot about assessment and coaching, but we like that programming aspect. And so how
would you say put that in a seminar, and what type of concept will people
I
see
want to
it?
be concrete. I want to explain. So what is an assessment part of, which I don't talk about in seminars, but how do I do an assessment? What is part of, so that it can lead to the type of programming that would lead for a person, from neural output to muscle capacity to, am I going to use linear progression or stuff like that? But it's mostly in order to fit and toward the coaching, in order to fit with the image of how do I keep performance, body as an object, and dealing with anxiety, which be body as a subject. We need the arch. You can't have performance if you're too anxious, but you can't fix anxiety and crash without having some look toward performance. Both matter. It's an arch, which is a fundamental thing of Strongfit, really. We need to be able to program correctly for that arch. And that's what I want to do toward the 2022. So I'm gonna put the seminar in a much more concrete aspect. I'm still gonna explain the principles, but I've been 7 years doing that, and there's so many podcasts and modules and stuff explaining it. I feel it's time to go toward a little bit more of that aspect.
Yeah.
More concrete. And again, how do we deal with people when they're going to come back from the craziness of the pandemic?
Yeah.
So that's what matters a lot.
I think it will be extremely beneficial for coaches, because it's so not easier to apply, but in a way, if it's more accurate and more towards programming, it is easier to apply in your daily stuff, right? Than just conceptually, or it's both very applicable. But
yeah, I believe
also,
so. Yeah, I believe so. So this is something we're gonna deal with. I mean, there'll be many more podcasts, but that's what I wanted to approach from the last podcast, is explaining what I saw as a problem and how we're gonna fix it.
Yeah.
And then the seminar going more toward all right, so how do we use all this concretely? How do we assess, program, coach someone who wants performance, but also someone with anxiety, both depression, all that stuff? Because it's not enough to just do performance. We have to deal with anxiety and depression, but it's not. In order to deal with anxiety and depression, we're going to have to deal with performance as well.
Yeah.
It's an arch. Both are necessary. So that's what we're going to focus on in 2022.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye.